Straight ahead on 12 News, a bill to snuff out electronic cigarettes indoors.
It's really going to raise the startup cost, and it's going to hinder people from vaping.
Then the rush to sign up for health care. We'll show you the local effort to help people wade through MNsure. But first, new details on the arrest of Robbinsdale's police chief and the prevalence of the crime he's accused of committing. 12 News starts right now. Hello, everyone, and thanks for joining us. We're learning more about what happened the day former Robbinsdale police chief was arrested in a prostitution sting.
Steve Smith resigned as chief over the weekend after word got out he was arrested for prostitution back in February. Reporter Cassie Bonstrom has more details from that day, as well as what could happen if he's convicted.
New photos and audio released by the Coon Rapids Police Department show what happened the day Robbinsdale Police Chief Steve Smith hired what he thought was a prostitute. Back on February 20th, police say Smith answered an ad on Backpages.com, a site often used for prostitution. The first exchange between Smith and the undercover officer was via text message. He used the name Scott and set a price of $150. Smith called when he arrived at the undisclosed apartment building in Coon Rapids.
Hey, this is Scott. I'm in a lot.
Oh, you are? Okay. So come in door E.
Okay.
And then buzz apartment 145.
Smith was arrested soon after this phone exchange and cited for engaging in prostitution, which is a misdemeanor.
Steve, for the record, can you state your full name and date of birth, please?
Stephen Douglas Smith, 11/22/68.
Smith resigned this past weekend, almost a month after his arrest, but his future in law enforcement remains unclear. All Minnesota police officers are licensed through the Board of Peace Officers Standards and Training. The board doesn't get involved in an arrest, just a conviction. So if Smith is convicted, the board could suspend or revoke his license.
Coon Rapids police say they didn't realize Smith was the Robbinsdale police chief until just a few days ago. They didn't do anything with that information because they say it is not their policy to inform the employer of an arrest. Reporting in Coon Rapids, I'm Cassie Bonstrom, 12 News.
Well, there's no question prostitution and sex trafficking is a big problem to solve.
Every year in Minnesota, thousands of women and girls are trafficked and sold for sex. And joining us now with more on the problem and what can be done about it is Noelle Vallin with Breaking Free, an organization that helps victims. Noelle, thanks so much for joining us. Obviously, there's been a lot of talk about this high-profile case. How big of a problem is prostitution in the suburbs?
Well, that's a common question. People want to know, is it happening in my community and what are the numbers? The reality is it's really hard to give you a straight number. What we do know from our law enforcement partners is that when they run these sting operations, within less than a minute of posting an ad on Backpage, they get hundreds of calls, more calls than they can even process and book. We also know that from our standpoint, working with victims, we've got 500 victims on average that we work with every year. So that's just one organization in one city in the state. So you know that's just the tip of the iceberg.
What about these victims? Girls and women, right? And how do they get trapped into this?
Well, it's basically, victims come from all walks of life. They come from all socioeconomic statuses, races, genders. Primarily, the victims are women and girls, and they enter in when they're juveniles. The average age of entry is between 12 and 14. So think about what we know when kids are 12 to 14 years old, their vulnerabilities. There's other added risk factors like race and gender and homelessness and past history of child sexual abuse, and all of those compound to make a victim incredibly vulnerable, not only to being bought, but also to being sold.
There's a March report on sex trafficking by the League of Women Voters in Minneapolis, and it shows it's a costly societal problem. The report also shows that every public dollar spent to prevent sex trafficking potentially saves the taxpayer $34 in return. Tell us about some of those efforts to prevent it, and is the issue, do you think, being treated seriously enough?
I believe when people are talking about sex trafficking, there's a lot of folks starting to pay attention. What we're not starting to hold as in much high regard is the prostitution, and that's the issue. We're not drawing the connection between prostitution and sex trafficking. The reality is sex trafficking wouldn't exist without prostitution, and prostitution wouldn't exist without men who are willing to buy. It is worth making an investment in combating sex trafficking. We need to look at prevention, right? Primary prevention means stopping the harm before it starts. That doesn't just mean knowledge bases at an individual level, but we're also talking about a paradigm shift. We're talking about societal and environmental changes where it's not okay to buy and sell human beings.
Wow, very interesting. Thanks, Noelle, for being here. We
My
really
pleasure.
appreciate it. For more information on Breaking Free, you can call them at 651-645-6557, or you can go online to breakingfree.net. In other news, a proposed indoor ban on e-cigarettes will get a vote in the full Senate.
The bill would classify e-cigarettes like regular cigarettes. Reporter Sonia Goins has more.
These e-cigarettes look exactly like the real thing.
Now a Senate bill would regulate e-cigarettes like the real thing. The law would ban so-called vaping indoors and in public outdoor areas.
How can you expect business owners to be able to run across them and check, is that an e-cigarette? Is that a real cigarette? I think that this is just a real common sense, ground level approach to give some structure and some regulation.
Now we're telling them that if you want to get your fix of nicotine, you have to go back out into the cold, literally in Minnesota, and stand next to those people who are smoking and ingest the secondhand smoke that you were trying to get yourself away from.
The bill would also ban e-cigarettes at schools, and businesses could not sell them to minors.
We don't think that these products are ready for kids, and so we don't market to kids and we don't sell to kids. And so we think we're supportive of that.
But opponents of e-cigarettes say companies purposely try to lure children with their products.
They market products that are bubblegum flavored and strawberry flavored and have Hello Kitty marketings on them. I mean, clearly these products were not meant for adults. It looks to me like they're targeting a young audience.
The e-cigarette business is growing in Minnesota. There are about 200 shops. This Brooklyn Park owner says he's worried the new legislation will snuff out business.
It's really going to raise the startup cost, and it's going to hinder people from vaping.
Brandon says it would be hard to try out products because under the law, you would not be allowed to smoke e-cigarettes inside the shop.
We would have to let them step outside with our tanks and let them try it outside. They should let us decide whether or not we want to allow it in here.
In Brooklyn Park, Sonia Goins, 12 News.
Right now, e-cigarettes are not regulated by the FDA. Both sides of the issue say more studies are needed. The Senate bill could be voted on in the next couple of weeks.
A new website, a new logo, and a new and improved course. Those are the big changes happening now or about to happen at Brooklyn Park's signature golf course, Edinburgh, USA. Construction is set to start in April on what course managers say will be a totally different course. Every bunker at Edinburgh, USA will be redone, some of them even eliminated. More fairway grass will also be put in. The goal is to make the course better for average golfers, but also maintain its elite level status. No holes will be closed while the construction takes place.
Brooklyn Park is anticipating growth with the extension of Highway 610 and available land to develop. As more businesses move in, including more employees at Target's northern campus, traffic will increase as well. The city is studying what type of interchange might work best to handle that extra traffic around the intersection of Highway 169 and 101st Avenue. The city expects they could have double the amount of people working in the city by the year 2030.
That corridor is really starting to heat up, and we still have that whole northwest area to develop. That's 1,400 to 1,500 acres, and a lot of that proposed land uses in that area are higher intensity types of land uses.
The city is currently looking at 6 different interchange possibilities. They hope to whittle those options down to 3 based on public comment tonight at an open house from 5 until 7 o'clock. Coming up, a MNsure milestone. See how the state's online insurance exchange has exceeded goals.
Then later in sports, the Wayzata baseball team gears up for a promising season. We'll have a preview.
But first, anticipating a storm, rain changing to snow, expected on Thursday. Despite warnings from the DNR about melting ice, we found several vehicles out on Medicine Lake in Plymouth. Thickness levels vary right now on area lakes, and even with the temperatures below freezing, the DNR says that doesn't mean the ice is safe. 2 people have died this winter from falling through the ice. At one area bait shop, the owner says ice thickness on Northwest Metro lakes is between 30 to 36 inches, and he has noticed signs of melting.
The crucial thing from here till whenever is going to be the access, getting onto the ice from the ground to the ice. That's going to soften up anything, especially anything that faces south, where the sun beats on it every day, all day.
The clock is ticking to enroll with MNsure, the state's online health insurance marketplace.
Most people have until March 31st to sign up, and failure to do that could result in tax penalties. In today's Health Check report, Elaine Cleveland meets up with a group that's trying to get people signed up as the deadline approaches.
tucked in a room at a North Memorial Clinic in Brooklyn Park,
And what is your preferred contact method?
my Ang Lee helps people through a series of questions in an attempt to get them signed up for MNsure.
Just for the previous month, I help over 200 people.
Lee works for the nonprofit group Portico HealthNet.
then we're gonna add a
She's
symbol
helped people sign up for MNsure since the site launched.
So a lot of the time, clients will come in, would I even qualify for anything if I don't make anything, or is my income too high? So you kind of just have to walk them through that process.
This is just one of hundreds of MNsure enrollment sessions organized across the state this week, leading up to the March 31st open enrollment deadline.
So the penalty for not having insurance is $95 for one adult, or 1% of your income, whichever is greater. And children are also mandated, which is, I think, something that a lot of people don't realize.
Someone trying to beat that deadline is Cheryl Booker.
I had part-time insurance benefits through my company, and that ended as of December the 1st of last year.
However, after walking through the process with Lee,
so if you have Medicare, then that's a little bit different.
Booker discovered she wasn't eligible for MNsure because she already had Medicare.
Well, it was a good experience just to know where I am, what I can apply for and what I can't apply for.
At the beginning, people didn't usually associate the term good experience with MNsure due to technical issues. But these navigators hope to change that stigma as the deadline draws closer.
There's been a lot of fixes too, so we're hopeful that, they can actually go on to create the account.
For Health Check, Delane Cleveland, 12 News.
And MNsure officials announced today that they've exceeded their enrollment goal of 136,000 people. For more information on enrollment workshops in the area, you can go to our website at 12.tv. Coming up, a hunger campaign that's quickly catching people's attention.
But first in sports, the Maple Grove softball team aims for a return to the state tournament this spring. John Jacobson has a preview coming up next.
Well, it's the change of the seasons. Maybe not so much outside, but for sports it is.
Yeah, except for high school lacrosse, all the spring sports teams, I should say, back at practice. And anxious to get outside for a lot of them. Yeah. High school baseball teams are back at work this week, hoping to get outside soon. Jason Melillo caught up with the defending Section 6-3A champion Wayzata Trojans for a season preview.
The Trojans are where they usually are this time of year, under the dome at Wayzata Central Middle School.
We're used to it and we expected it. It certainly could be a lot worse if you were in a high school gym somewhere.
But come May, Wayzata hopes to be playing for another section title. The Trojans made an exciting run last spring, staving off elimination twice and going to the state tournament for just the second time in school history.
The state didn't go the way we wanted it to, but certainly the experience of getting through section and battling those tough teams, it's something we're looking forward to, and hopefully we get a chance to get that close again.
It was a great experience to just go there and be a part of the tournament. But we took a part that you actually have to win the day and win the inning every single game, and you can't just look forward to something that you don't know if you're going to make or not.
Wayzata has a good chance to repeat last year's success. Most of the starters return, and the Trojans also have a good crop of young players.
I think we have a big advantage in just knowing those little things that end up winning the game or losing the game. I think in baseball especially, that's really what happens. It's a game of inches, and I think since we have a lot of older guys, I think we're going to have an advantage in that part of the game.
Head coach Bobby DeWitt is particularly optimistic about the pitching staff. It's a group with experience and depth.
In my opinion, I think we're going to be even stronger with pitching. We lost a few key guys, but we return a lot. We have probably 3 to 4 guys we could consider number one as far as talent goes.
With a lot of melting, Wayzata will play its first game on April 10th. Jason Melillo, 12 Sports.
That season opener for the Trojans will be at Apple Valley. Wayzata's home opener is scheduled for April 17th. Like Wayzata's baseball team, the Maple Grove softball team is coming off a state tournament appearance last June. As Jay Wilcox reports, the Crimson looks like a strong contender this spring.
When you return 7 starters from a team that placed 4th in the state tournament, it's fair to say that expectations are high for the Maple Grove softball team this spring.
From what we've seen so far, we've got a lot of talent and we can really go out there, we can hit, and that's basically the biggest part of the game.
And we set a few different goals for this year of what we kind of wanted to accomplish as a team and how we wanted to go about things with our hitting, our fielding, and our pitching. And the kids have really responded to it, and they've really taken it to to heart of what we're asking them to do, and you're starting to see some results already just after 2 weeks.
It starts with pitching, and the Crimson have one of the best in junior Sydney Smith. There's plenty of talent around her, too. Catcher infielder Jordan Malk has committed to play for Minnesota State Mankato. Slugging first baseman Sarah Southern, center fielder Sammy Sadler, and second baseman Josie Roll will also be counted on a lot. The returners have improved, too.
We started doing some workouts during the off season to make sure that we were improving during the season. I can tell people in practice are definitely working harder than ever before.
Maple Grove softball field still has plenty of snow on it. Games are supposed to begin in about 2 weeks, but the players are trying not to worry yet.
No, compared to last year, we have not as much snow, and it's getting really warm out, so I think it's gonna go away, and we'll work on our field as well. We did some maintenance stuff to it, so we won't have as much puddles and all this stuff like that.
We've got some warm weather coming up, and nothing can be as bad as it was last year, so we feel like we can get out there, and if it comes to it, we will just end up playing doubleheaders again.
At Maple Grove, they're eager to take the field and show that they're a contender in the conference, section, and even for a state title. Jay Wilcox, 12 Sports.
Maple Grove is slated to open the season at home against Champlin Park April 9th. First, though, they're taking a spring break trip as a team to Cocoa Beach, Florida. Sounds a little better than Maple Grove or Osseo or anywhere right now.
Yes.
Yes.
Some field coaching. Thanks, John.
Right.
Still ahead, tackling an important challenge with a little humor.
One local food shelf's way of catching your attention when we come back.
And finally, a dynamite way to end our show.
I throw these hands up in the air sometimes, saying, ayo, gotta give yo. We wanna do our part and help some lives, saying, ayo, come on, give yo.
And not only do they help people in need, the folks at CEAP have a good sense of humor. They put out this video on YouTube this week to highlight this year's March Food Share campaign. With about 2 weeks left, CEAP is about halfway toward its goal for fundraising and food donations. And CEAP serves about 1,400 families every month. That's funny. This Saturday, CEAP is collecting food and cash donations at 3 locations: the Walmart in Brooklyn Center, Festival Foods in Brooklyn Park, and Cub Foods in Brookdale.
Bring in those donations so
Yeah.
they don't have to keep singing, right? Maybe they had a good time.
That song will go through your head, too.
Exactly. You'll keep singing it.
That's it for now. Thanks for joining us, everyone.
Community Corner is coming up next, and we'll see you back here tomorrow.